Breaking news on that massive cyber hack attack that swept the globe. Homeland Security has just put out an update, and it appears for now that the U.S. may have been spared. They're saying that fewer than 10 U.S. organizations reported to the Department of Homeland Security that they were victims of this ransomware attack. This, as the WannaCry attack, that's what it's called, has crippled computers in at least 150 countries. But it is getting a whole lot more frightening when it comes to the cost. Silicon Valley firm CyberRisk Science estimates the direct cost of computer downtime and lost productivity from the cyber attack to be around $8 billion globally, making the WannaCry attack the most damaging incident involving so-called ransomware ever. Intelligence officials suggest new digital clues, though, we didn't know this yesterday at this time, point to North Korean-linked hackers as the likely suspects behind the attack. So I want to bring in Symantec CEO Greg Clark. Over at Symantec, this is what you guys live, breathe, and eat every single day. What do you make of this report that it's the North Koreans, or at least North Koreans, that are there? And you know they didn't do this on their own. It's got to be government-propelled.
Yeah. So I think, this is an interesting case. I think usually the Lazarus group that was associated with things that have been linked back to North Korea in the past have typically gone after huge sums of money on the kind of cyber attacks that they're going with here. In this case, the ransom dollars are very low, which is something that would raise an eyebrow as to that attribution. We absolutely do have the linkage from the code itself to tools that have been used by the Lazarus Group in the past, but I think there's a few other attributes in this case that are interesting, and I think the authorities are definitely working hard. I think the size of the ransom doesn't fit that adversary, which is an eye-opener for us. And I think there is a case that said it might have been some other folks that used some code from them, but there are organizations that are working hard on this, and I think the authorities have got a good angle on it, and we've handed over all of the things that we've found, and we led the research on this, and that's the one thing that is an eye-opener still, as to $300 a Bitcoin per incident doesn't fit the adversary as well.
So can I push you on that? What does that mean? Yeah. The adversary would normally ask for more?
If you think about, the one that went down in Bangladesh that was linked back to Lazarus Group, that was an $80 million plus, heist. They made a few typos, or it would have been a lot more money. So usually we see ransomware inside corporations having a higher sticker price than $300. And so that's the one thing that would indicate, these guys may have known each other. They may have shared some code, but there may be more to it. Well, and, I think there's... go ahead.
I did just want to jump in, because the North Koreans, they are sort of allied with maybe the Russians, maybe the Chinese, but both those countries had victims of this ransomware attack. And when you think of how they attacked Sony back in the day, just a couple of years ago, over that movie, The Interview, starring Jonah Hill, I mean, we all remember what that did to a single business. And as a business network, it's extraordinarily damaging.
I think that this particular piece of malware, when that vulnerability was unleashed on the internet, where it was going to go and how many places it was going to affect is sort of outside of the adversary's control on the propagation of that worm. And so we think, there's a case that said somebody built it, put it out there, never expected it to go as well as it did, and is now surprised and probably very concerned as so there is, we're definitely, I think there's a few mistakes have been made, and there's a few more things we're following up on, and I think that, the government authorities and the law enforcement are definitely all over it. And, but, it's an interesting case. It is a worm. Worms have exponential propagation, situations, which this did, and went everywhere. And there is a case that said maybe it was targeted at consumers. It had a different, outcome.
I'm just being told it wasn't Jonah Hill, it was Seth Rogen. Interestingly, we didn't see either of them in that clip. But finally, very quickly here, Disney is being hit by something else, but they are being hit by somebody who claims to have pirated the new Pirates of the Caribbean movie, and that they're holding it ransom. And Disney says, we're not paying. Bob Iger says, we're not paying. What is your advice to any business that receives a message saying, we'll release your machines, we'll open them back up and give you back your data if you pay the ransom?
Our advice to people is not to do that. There's been plenty of cases where people have paid the ransom and the files are not recoverable, or things are not recoverable, or things continue. So our advice is don't do it, and work on other recovery mechanisms.
Greg, good to see you.
Big wake-up call for us, Liz.
Yeah.
Big wake-up call for us. This is somewhere where you got to patch vulnerabilities. You need cyber defense technologies. And happy to report that people that did patch their systems and did have the latest versions of technology were not affected, even in Europe, even in China and APAC.
Good move. But thank you, Greg. It's really great to have you guys on business's side. Thank you so much.
No, thank you for having us on the show. Appreciate it.
Greg Clark, Symantec CEO.